Hello, this is Mr. Martin. In this video, I'm going to look at a number of examples of completing the square with respect to putting a conic section in standard form. So we're going to start with the equations in general form and put them into standard form. So we're going to look at specifically how to complete the square when we're dealing with conic sections. And I'm going to move kind of quickly in the video, so if you need to pause and rewind or stop and write down some questions, feel free to do that. Let's get started. Okay, so for the first one, what we want to notice here is that I have x squared and I have y squared. Okay, so that's one of the things that we're going to be looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange things. And I'm going to put my x's together, so I have x squared plus 8x, and I'm going to put my y's together. I have y squared plus 2y. And I'm going to move my constant over to the other side, so subtract 8 from both sides. Now I'm going to start the process of actually completing the square. And for this example, since it's x squared and y squared, I'm going to have to complete the square for both variables. So if you recall from algebra, when you complete the square, we're going to take half of the coefficient of our x term, or our term that's degree 1. So that's going to be positive 4 squared, and I'm always going to write it as half squared, and I'll explain why in the next step. And then let's do the same thing for y squared, so y squared plus 2y, and then I'm going to take half of this coefficient, so that's going to be plus 1 squared equals negative 8. Now, since I added 4 squared on the left, I have to add it on the right, so 4 squared. And since I added 1 squared on the left, I have to add it also on the right to keep things balanced. Okay, that's very important. That's a very common place to make mistakes. Now that I've taken my half and squared it, I can actually factor this. So I have x plus 4 squared, and then this is going to be y plus 1 squared, and then on the right side, if I simplify all this, it should come out to be 9. Now, I just want to point out why I left this as 4 and why I left this as 1, because when I go ahead and complete the square, whatever that number is in the parentheses, it just comes directly down into where we complete the square. I don't have to think about it again. Okay, so instead of writing 16 here, I just write 4 squared. The 4 comes down to x plus 4 squared. This one, it doesn't make a difference because it's 1, but the 1 just comes down and becomes y plus 1. And then we have our final answer. And soon we'll be learning that this is going to be a circle. Okay, and you'll notice this one equals 9. For the next few examples, we're going to transform this so that it equals 1 instead. All right, moving on to number 3. I'm going to have you do the even problems on your own. All right, so again, let's take a look at my squared variables. I have x squared, I have y squared. Now, here I have just 4x squared, so there's really nothing to complete the square with that one. So I have 4x squared plus y squared minus 2y plus, I'm going to take half of that negative 2 and make it negative 1. Notice how half of negative 2 is negative 1. That's important. 15 goes to the other side. I just added 15 to both sides. And then I'm going to add my negative 1 squared also on the right. If it's on the left, it has to be on the right. All right, so again, nothing to square with my 4x squared term. And then my y's become y minus 1 squared. You see how I just took this minus 1 and it comes right down here. I don't have to worry about it. And then on the right side, that's going to be 15 plus 1 is 16. Okay, now since I have, in the first problem, my coefficient of my perfect squares is 1. But over here, my coefficient of my perfect square over here is 4, and over here it's 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything by 16 and simplify. Okay, so if it's not a circle, we're going to want it to equal 1. That's a little preview of things to come. So this reduces to x squared over 4. This doesn't reduce, it just becomes y minus 1 squared over 16 is equal to 1. This becomes our final answer. And again, a preview of things to come. This is going to be the standard form of an ellipse. All right, moving along. We've got number 5 here. I notice that I have x squared and y squared, so I'm going to complete the square twice. Do a little rearranging first. So I have 10x squared minus 60x, and then I have minus 3y squared plus 54y. Let's move that 753 over to the other side. Now, in order to complete the square, I'm going to write this down. To complete the square, the leading coefficient must be 1. Okay? To complete the square, our leading coefficient must be 1. And in this problem, neither leading coefficient is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that out. So I've got 10 times x squared minus 6x. Then I'm going to take half of that negative 6. So plus negative 3 squared. Okay, I took half of negative 6 and got negative 3. Over here, I'm going to factor out a negative 3. So minus 3 times y squared. Now this is going to change to negative, so that's minus 18y plus, I'm going to take half of negative 18, so that's negative 9 squared equals 753. Now, over here, I actually added 10 times this. So plus 10 times negative 3 squared. Again, this is a really common place to make mistakes. And then over here, I have negative 3 times negative 9 squared. So minus 3 times negative 9 squared. Now I'm all balanced. And we can continue on. So this is going to be 10 times x minus 3 squared. Again, I just took the negative 3 and brought it down here. Minus 3 times y minus 9 squared equals, and if I did my calculations correctly, that should be 600. Again, our leading coefficients are 10 and negative 3 here. So I'm going to divide everything by 600. Okay, so unless these are 1 and it's going to be a circle, we're going to make it equal to 1. So we get x minus 3 squared over 60, and then minus y minus 9 squared over 200 is equal to 1. This is our final answer. This is our equation in standard form, and this one happens to be a hyperbola. All right, again, I know I'm going quickly in the video, so pause when you need to and rewind when you need to. Let's go and do one more. Okay, so we have circle, ellipse, hyperbola, and this will be our last one. So again, notice here, I only have one variable squared. Okay, so only one of our conic sections has one variable squared. So even before we do any calculations, we know this one has to be a parabola. Parabola is our only conic section that has one of the variables squared. So in this case, I'm going to rearrange and put the x's on the left, and I'm going to move the y's to the right. So I have negative x squared plus 20x equals negative y minus, or plus 101. And then again, I can't complete the square unless my leading coefficient is positive 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply through by negative 1. All right, so everything gets multiplied by negative 1. So basically I'm just changing the sign of everything. So I have x squared minus 20x. Let's go ahead and complete the square now. So plus, I always put plus, half of my x term, so that's going to be negative 10 squared. And then on the other side, I'm going to have y minus 101, because again, I'm sort of doing two steps at the same time. I multiplied by negative 1 and completed the square. That would be 101. And then plus negative 10 squared. Okay, make sure that you don't forget to add this on both sides. All right, so finishing on the left, we have x minus 10 squared, and then negative 101 plus 100 is a y minus 1. All right, and this would be our final answer, and this is a parabola. All right. This completing the square skill is extremely important for this unit, and if you are having trouble with it, make sure you get help, and we will see you in the next video.